color added is added to their feed. It's the antioxidant that makes it orange. It's the same thing that's in krill. It's the same thing that flamingos are colored with. Like, no one's going around injecting flamingos with pink dye. And it's what wild salmon eat as well.
Okay.
So the fact that people are like, oh my gosh, this color added crap, it's terrible for you, blah, blah, blah. Okay, go look at your Gatorade you're drinking.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more, you can explore our homemade natural skincare products at purelytallow.com. Thank you so much for supporting my small business. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and my guest today is Gigi Ashworth from Gigi's Eats on Instagram. And she is an author. People know her as the Salmon Queen, and she was once a contestant on MasterChef. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Gigi.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Awesome. Oh, I'm honored that you took the time. So let's talk about your story, because it's fascinating to me that you almost exclusively eat salmon, like 14 pounds a week, right? How did that happen?
Just kind of psycho. I'm like one of those rare cases that I could eat the exact same thing every single day, and
Mhm.
obviously I do,
Right.
but it's literally the exact same thing. I even went to go visit my family recently, my husband's family,
Mhm.
and they just were continually asking me questions like, "What do you want for dinner?" And I'm like, "Salmon, obviously." And they're
Obviously.
like, how could you just do that every day? Like, I thought maybe you want to like mix it up. I'm like, no, 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 we're not mixing anything up. And I genuinely get sad if salmon is not on the menu. So when I'm like traveling overseas or something,
Yeah.
you know, salmon's not always available.
Ah.
So I have to make do with whatever else is on the menu. And I'm like, I'm going into withdrawals right now because I need it. So basically, I'll make this short. I have a lot of intestinal issues. I have ulcerative colitis. I've got the IBS, which I feel like a majority of the population has IBS at this point. I don't have a large intestine. I have a lot of food allergies and autoimmune diseases and intolerances and everything. Like, I literally won the lottery when it comes to digestive stuff.
Great.
I know, it's wonderful.
Congratulations.
It's I won $1 million. Anyway, so the one food that I know will make me feel amazing without a doubt, regardless of the situation. Well, I mean, unless it's prepared with certain things I can't eat, is salmon. So I rely on it very heavily if I know I have like an evening that I have to go out and be on my A game. I know that if I eat salmon earlier in the day and right before I go, like, it's not going to cause bloating. It's not going to cause any, gas or anything like that. And I know that I'm gonna feel good and energized and ready to go. So that's really the reason why I rely so heavily on it, but also it's freaking delicious. My favorite macronutrient is fat, much like a lot of the carnivores out there.
Yeah.
And when I'm cooking a salmon, I eat out of the pan and then I lick the pan because the fat, I just don't want to waste it.
That's right.
And it's really good for you. So
Yeah.
obviously that's a bonus.
Yeah.
So every single day I need salmon. At this point, my husband still asks me, "What do you want for dinner?" I'm like, "Are you on drugs? You know what I want."
Have you met me?
What?
Have you
Uh,
met me before?
Exactly. Like, what planet are you on right now?
That's right.
But yeah, so that's the short and sweet of it.
So, how did that happen though? How did you go from being a normal person to only eating salmon? You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to go from being normal or average to being a carnivore, but
Yeah.
I feel like you're on an entirely different level there. Like, how did you realize that salmon was the thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when I was 14, I went to boarding school for snowboarding. And when I was there, I started to feel not so good because I was eating all the normal things, whatever,
Mhm.
not realizing that I had intolerances and allergies and autoimmune diseases. But I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and a bunch of food issues, if you will, when I was around 14 years old. So that's when the elimination diet process started. My mom sent me a book about the ketogenic lifestyle. There was no book jacket on it or anything like that, so I didn't really know what the heck I was reading, but I read
Yeah.
it anyway. And it was the ketogenic lifestyle. My mom had been living keto carnivore ever since I was born, which I find really funny because everybody's so carnivore these days in the
Yeah.
last couple of years. And I'm like, this literally has been my existence my entire life. But
That's
like,
crazy.
it's great though to see everybody really latching onto it and feeling like $1 million because I've been talking about this for so long. And now it's like, yes, it's coming to fruition here. So anyway, my mom sent me this book. I read it. And, it relied heavily on fat, heavily on animal protein, not so much carbs and all that kind of stuff. And I was like really eating a lot of cashew nuts back in the day, which funnily enough, I cannot eat nuts because more recently, I want to say maybe in the last 10 years, I made one of my recipe videos with a friend of mine and she's vegan. Oh God, how do you do
Oh
that?
my goodness.
I know, and we made something with almond milk. I was like, I don't know, I'll take a bite, like whatever. And I took a bite of it, and within an hour, I started feeling itchy. And then I started. You remember the movie Hitch with Will Smith?
Yes.
I don't know if he gets stung by a bee or what he gets
Yeah.
stung by, but he into that big
Love
thing. Yeah,
that.
literally what I looked like. But I went to an event that evening and I was like one of the star guests of this event. Oh God. It
Oh.
was awful because it was with my girlfriend. It was a food tasting event, which I don't know, it's scary, but
Yeah.
navigate those waters just as much as you probably do, where you're like, oh, I'll pick and choose here. And I remember just going into the bathroom and started like, I was like, oh my God. And I was like sweating and it was just all kinds of uncomfortable that I walked back into the room and I whispered to my friend, I'm like, I have to leave. So I didn't even say goodbye to anyone. I just ran out of there because I was going to explode into
Yeah.
hives.
Right.
But anyway, that's totally veering off the topic here. So, read this book, started learning more and more about it, and researching more on my behalf. And then in boarding school, I started to rely heavily on these meatballs that were down the street. But then I got kicked out of boarding school because what happened was I was cutting so many things out of my life that I became anorexic. And then it became a control issue because my first boarding school closed down. I moved to a different boarding school totally all of a sudden. And,
Mhm.
a 14, 15-year-old brain is very impressionable and thinks, the world is falling around them.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I could control was my food.
Yep.
So I was not eating like anything. I think I remember because I had a food journal. I
Mhm.
wrote down that I would eat 8 ounces of sliced turkey breast, the Sausalito boar's head, by the way, because I totally
Goodness gracious.
remember. And then in the evening, I would eat like 8 scoops of green powder. So one of those like vegetable powders or whatever the heck they
Oh
were.
yeah. So good for you.
Yeah, I know, amazing. And then I was taking laxatives, so, just
Oh
the
my
cream
goodness.
on top of the whole cake here.
Yeah.
So, I lost a whole bunch of weight, kind of like a cry for help without actually crying for help, was kicked out of
Yeah.
school, and then when I got home, my mom was very, encouraging when it came to eating, really healthy for you carnivore keto foods.
Mhm.
So we would order from Vital Choice Seafood way back in the day. They've been around for a very long time. One of the
Mhm.
first companies that I ever ordered food from, along with North Star Bison, if you're familiar with them. Mary is the woman who owns that ranch, and we go way back. Anyway, so we would order a whole bunch of salmon and Chilean sea bass and black cod from, sorry, Vital Choice, and that's when I started eating a lot of salmon. I had been introduced to salmon before I went to boarding school. My dad loves cooking. That was what we would do with him on the weekends. We're French, so he very much loved the French cuisine and just loved being in the kitchen. And I remember I ran away from home one day because my parents tried to feed me salmon and I was not having that. I actually wrote about that in one of my books. So anyway, I started to eat a lot more salmon when I got home, and it just kind of snowballed into me eating it every single day. And then when I went to college, I made friends with the you have to eat at the dining hall your freshman
Right.
year. I
Right.
made friends with every single chef that was working in the dining hall, and they would make me special meals of salmon. And they would bring it up to me in the dining hall. Because they knew I appreciated food, whereas everyone else was just kind of like, give me your slop, here we go. So that was really cool. And then the next year I moved into my own place and I was just cooking salmon every single day. And when I first moved to Los Angeles after college, I had a little bit more of a variety in my life. So I was eating a little bit more keto than carnivore.
Mhm.
And I call myself a ketovore, to be completely honest, because I do eat butter lettuce with my salmon because it soaks up the fat so well. It's just wonderful. And anyway, so back then I was eating a little bit more of a variety, like maybe eggplant once in a while, or
Okay.
green beans, or asparagus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I had my large intestine removed when I was 21 because I had something called a Siegel volvulus. So that was like my junior year of college. And after that incident, I narrowed my diet further, taking away a lot more of the fibrous vegetables because
Mhm.
fiber and I are not friends. In fact, I shouldn't be eating the leafy greens that I do, but I'm like, you know what? This is a dill. This is a hill I'm gonna die on
Right.
because carnivore lifestyles are very limited, as people would say, limited. You know, there's a lot of variety within the carnivore
Yeah.
space. But for me personally, I've been living this way for so long that I'm like, there are a couple little vices that I have. I
Sure.
drink Monster energy drinks. I
Mhm.
chew sugar-free gum. I've got my extra right here. And I drink Zevia, which, some carnivores don't have any stevia in their lives or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then I have my leafy greens here and there.
Mhm.
But I've limited those a lot. Like I don't eat lettuce.
Mhm.
I don't eat kale. I don't eat any of that crap. I literally stick with butter lettuce and just a little bit of spinach.
Okay.
Everything else ruins me. So yeah, anyway, I just started to progressively eat more and more and more and more salmon every single day. And I learned way more about salmon as well, wild versus farmed and the
Mhm.
different cuts and where you can get the best of the best, where the not so good stuff is, and where it's all raised, if it is farm raised. And now I work with a whole bunch of salmon companies to educate people on farm raised salmon because
Okay.
everyone thinks farm raised salmon is like the worst thing on the face of the planet, but it's not. Which is really annoying because everyone's like, "Oh, farm raised salmon is the worst thing ever," and
Yeah.
then you're like promoting bread and cookies and
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm like,
Right.
"What world do we live in?" I'm very
Yeah.
passionate. So that drives me crazy. I mean, there
Well,
are
let's
other.
talk about that. Let's talk about that for a minute, the difference between the farm, and wild salmon varieties, because I have heard that too, that we shouldn't be eating the farm-raised ones, and a lot of them, they get injected with dyes and things like that to make them more orange, so t tell me.
Okay, so number one, they are not injected with dyes. The
Okay.
color added is added to their feed, and it's the I can't say this word, and it's really embarrassing. It's the antioxidant that makes it orange. It's the same thing that's in krill. It's the same thing that flamingos are colored with. Like no one's going
Okay.
around injecting flamingos with pink dye. So, and it's what wild salmon eat as well.
Okay.
So the fact that people are like, oh my gosh, this color added crap, it's terrible for you, blah, blah, blah. Okay, go look at your Gatorade you're drinking.
I know, right? I
Get
know.
out of my face with this.
Yeah.
And also it's, I'm not going to claim every single farmed salmon is amazing. There are definitely farms out there that do not do humane practices. They're
Right.
injecting their fish with God knows what. But the companies that I respect and admire and tell people about are the ones that are doing things the humane way. They're making sure
Mhm.
things are sustainable. They're feeding their fish a great ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 in order to really emphasize our own health. And because
Mhm.
when you eat it, you're gonna gain that great ratio as well. They're literally looking after their fish, and every single farm that I have come in contact with, and it's a lot,
Mhm.
they are truly dedicated to raising their fish the best of the best. They
Okay.
want to feed whomever their customer is top quality stuff. So I am 100% for farmed salmon.
Okay.
Obviously, when you go out to a restaurant and when you go to sushi or whatever it is, you don't really know where it's coming from. And guess what? I'm gonna live my life and I'm gonna eat it. And it's
Right.
delicious. Okay. It's like the same thing when people have like a quote unquote cheat day. They're like, am I gonna die? No.
No.
So it's like it's fine. But if I can actively choose which salmon I'm going to eat, I will make sure that I'm eating the ones that I know where it's from. I know
Mhm.
how it's raised. They have clear information on their website. It's not some obscure thing that you have to do a huge deep dive in Google where you only find
Right.
other people's articles and you can never know what's truth and what's false. So that's my thinking on farm raised salmon. Obviously, people are they can do whatever they want. They
Right.
still believe that farm raised salmon is the worst thing on the face of the planet because the FDA and whomever else has claimed this, even though
Mhm.
days they're not claiming this.
Right.
It's all dated research from the 1960s when farmed salmon first started and it was not regulated even a little bit. So it's annoying because they need to really update the research which they're starting to do,
Yeah.
but the voice has been continued to be muted because everybody's like farm or excuse me, wild caught, wild caught, wild caught, which first of all, wild caught salmon is insanely expensive. Secondly, I don't particularly like the taste. it just doesn't do something for me, and it's not as fatty as farm-raised salmon.
Hmm.
Number 3, it's being overfished. And it honestly, there have been a lot of articles out there saying, like, is salmon going to go extinct, wild salmon? And
Hmm.
it very well could. And number 4, you know, there's something interesting that happens with wild caught salmon, and it's that it's not always wild caught. They claim it to be wild caught because they raise it in a pen and then they put it in the wild and then they catch it and oh gosh, that was wild caught. It's kind of like when you say free range chickens. It's like
Hmm.
it has an option to go outside if it wants to, but if it's not, but like, that's how you can claim that it's free range. The same
Right.
thing with wild caught salmon. Obviously, not all wild salmon is the same. So there are some fishermen who literally get it from Alaska, and their practices are such where like you're not allowed to do this raising and releasing and then catching it
Hmm.
sort of. But there's a lot of wild salmon out there that is not actually wild. So
Okay.
people need to realize that you can't really trust everything that you're eating. Like if your wild salmon is insanely fatty, guarantee you that is not wild salmon. I can tell by a photo if the
Really?
if the salmon is wild or not. Oh yeah. Whenever my friends are like, "How do I cook this? What do I do?" And I'm like, "Send me a photo and then I can educate you on how to cook it." Because with farmed race versus wild caught, there is different temperatures and times because if you do my tried and true 400 for 28 with wild caught salmon, it is going to be a brick and disgusting. But with the farm raised salmon, it's going to be luscious and perfect.
Really, really interesting. So do you have on your Instagram page, do you have links to good places where you would recommend people buy the salmon?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
If I don't right now, I will put them up there, but I think
Okay.
I do have, like, a highlight click on it, and then they can go to each person's
Okay.
Instagram or, brand rather.
Okay, awesome. So I don't know if you have seen the latest wave of sardine fasts going on in the carnivore space. And I'm doing one. So if you don't, I mean, it's okay if you
I
think
love
something's wrong. Okay,
sardines.
good. Okay,
Right.
okay.
I mean,
Okay, awesome.
I literally just had canned mackerel, which you
Oh,
should do the
awesome.
mackerel fast next.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, I love it. The problem is when you put fast at the end of anything,
Hmm.
it turns into a fad. Whereas
Yes.
I think that sardines should just be incorporated into your lifestyle regardless. I mean, I love it because it might turn people's appetite on to sardines.
Yep.
I hate it because I don't want people to think that this is a quick fix.
Right. Okay.
I'm all yeah.
Okay, so that was what I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's what I was going to ask you about, and then we'll talk about that. But I wanted to know, do people come at you because some people come at those of us doing sardine fasts or challenges and say, "Oh, you're just bringing disordered eating into the carnivore space," or, you shouldn't be doing that. You're teaching people the wrong way, like whatever. But do you get that a lot with the salmon issue? Do people say that to you?
I only get attacked in regards to farmed versus wild caught. I
Okay.
never get attacked in regards to disordered eating or anything like that
Okay.
because I think on my feed, I have a bit of a variety because I do work with some brands that want recipes. So I
Mhm.
will incorporate the vegetables and stuff like that. I will never put like sugar and dairy unless I was doing something funny for my husband or my kids. I personally would never put anything that had bread or dairy because I can't eat dairy or sugar or anything like that in a recipe. So like for instance, my salmon cookbook. I'm gonna say it's a keto cookbook because it's vegetables and it's healthy fats and it's salmon and there's nothing else involved. But people see the vegetables, I guess, as being at least a little bit of variety and they don't really
Yeah.
notice that the grains are gone or whatever to
Yeah.
make
Right.
that balanced plate. So I've never really been attacked like that, even when I was really thin. So with my second child, I lost like 30 pounds, which I
Wow.
can't lose 30 pounds. So I was like walking around 95 pounds with this big bowling ball in my stomach. And I look back on videos and photos, and even my husband sent me some pictures the other day because I guess he was looking through his computer and he was like, "You look sick." Like, and I look at that too, and I'm like, "I look disgusting." Like, I look like a skeleton, and I don't particularly think that's a very good look. But like, I don't look like that now.
Right.
However, back then I wasn't even attacked or anything like that. I think maybe there was a couple comments like, "Oh, you're not doing your baby justice or whatever." But the real situation was, number one, that pregnancy, I did not feel good the entire time.
Mm.
And I was eating keto carnivore during that time as well. But the baby was positioned in a way where like I got full really quick, which is weird for me because I am a bottomless pit.
Mm.
Uh, and I think that's part of why I don't get screamed at about disordered eating is because I showcase everything that I eat, and I eat more than 4 linebackers in a meal. Like absolutely no joke, and I eat 2 of them. I
Mm.
have 2 meals a day. But like I eat so much food. I eat more than my husband. I eat more than
That's crazy.
Joe down the street who's 7 feet tall and 250 pounds. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I don't get that
Well,
yet.
some people have been negative in the carnivore space about Dr. Boz's sardine challenge. Let's call it a challenge. And I think it's amazing. I had met my goal and then gained 17 pounds back from under eating and fasting too much. And sure, overeating here and there, but my body just goes into like this extreme crisis mode. And I have tried every macro situation you can think of protein to fat and fat to protein and calories everywhere from 1500 to 1800 to lose the 70. Nothing works for me. It like my body is stuck. My A1C is borderline, even though I'm a carnivore. My glucose stays at 100 or more. The other day it was 115. And my ketones are like zero point 0.2 on a normal carnivore diet where I'm not really counting calories and not eating like an overabundance of dairy, but just eating what feels good, steak, some hamburgers, a cheeseburger, a bacon cheeseburger, bacon and eggs for breakfast. My glucose stays high, my ketones stay low. But I do a sardine challenge. And let me tell you, my ketones go way up like 4.5. My glucose comes down to in the 70s. My body loves it. My body also loves very high fat carnivore, like 90 or 95%, which is almost impossible to do.
Sticks of butter.
And so, huh?
Just
What?
eating butter over there.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like that is no fun. Like, I mean, I eat butter, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm eating ribeye trimmings and butter.
Yeah.
And that's
And
pretty much it. I can't.
a little bit of variety here.
Yeah, I can't even have a hamburger really without like that's touch and go. If I eat a hamburger, my macros are almost blown for the day if I'm doing that. So I'd
A
much
fif
rather eat sardines. Huh?
Yeah. You gotta do a 50-50 blend.
Yeah, right. Like it's hard. And I know a lot of other people struggle with that too. So I feel like the sardine thing is a great tool in our toolbox for people who, and I think like for somebody like me, maybe I need to do it just once a week or twice a week to kind of boost my ketones, lower my glucose, eat normal carnivore. And then if things start to get out of whack again, just do it again. There's something about those little magic fishies. I don't know what it is,
Well,
but I have, huh?
it's just like salmon. It's
Yeah.
like salmon and mackerel. Like I challenge you when you're done with sardines
Okay.
or sardines, done with them. Do the salmon challenge. So when fasting, you remember like egg fasts and stuff. I feel like people still do them.
Yeah.
When people were like obsessed with doing the egg fast, I actually wrote a salmon fast out. I was like, I'm gonna just post this and see what happens. Didn't really get any traction or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
very long ago. But I will challenge you to
Okay.
doing salmon fast.
I would
And
do it.
favorite canned salmons, if you go the canned salmon route, King Oscar just came out with a new salmon.
I have
So,
that.
oh my God, it's
I
so
have
good.
some.
Yeah, I'm working on some recipes for them right now, which is just very great because it's so tasty. And then there's so if you belong to Thrive Market,
Mhm.
which you may or may not, but they actually have a very, very, very good canned Atlantic salmon too, packed in olive oil, which I don't know if you eat olive oil on your carnivore lifestyle, but they also have it in water too, so you can
Okay.
doctor it however you well please.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that King Oscar only has their new farmed salmon with olive oil and stuff like that. So
Okay.
do that. You might have to wash it off if you
No,
can.
I've been doing the sardines and olive oil. I don't normally use olive oil for cooking, but I've been eating the sardines and olive oil because Dr. Boz is very specific about it not being low fat. Like you're not losing weight and
Fat.
all of yeah, it has to have the fat in it. So you either eat the 2 tablespoons of oil that it comes in, like drink it after you're done, or you add avocado oil, mayonnaise, or something to it.
I have a suggestion for you because this is
Go.
what I do with it. So I don't know if you eat squid or mussels or anything like that. If you don't, then this won't work for you. But whoever's listening to this,
Okay.
if you eat squid or octopus or anything like those, I know that these what, crustaceans, you can call them that maybe,
Yeah.
they have a little bit of carbohydrate in them, but I love those babies. And what I do is I'll saute them up in the pan, or just they're frozen usually, so I'll warm them up in the pan with nothing,
Mhm.
and then I'll get a can of sardines or a can of mackerel or even a can of tuna or something like that that's packed in a whole bunch of olive oil,
Uh-huh.
and I just dump all of that in the pan, and I make it like a little stir fry. And holy moly, it was like what I ate every single day when I was pregnant. And it just makes me so happy. I don't eat it as often now because my husband hates the smell of those types of fish in the
Oh, yeah.
house. We have a burner outside, but it's too hot outside right
Yeah.
now. I can't go outside. But I highly suggest that to anybody who loves squid or octopus or anything like that. So good.
Awesome. Definitely, I'll think about trying that. I'm not a like, I am like a chicken, beef, and pork kinda gal. You know what I
I
mean?
don't I can't do it. I don't know why. I just get
Mm,
creeped out. I think I ate like a piece of pork chop once, and it was like weirdly sweet. I
mm,
do eat wild boar though, because I feel like it has a different flavor. And by the way, the Black Wing Meats place that I
uh-huh.
mentioned before has wild boar. So
Okay.
hey,
Awesome. So we were talking about, black wing because you were saying they have, like, exotic meats, like, you can get emu and camel and stuff like that there?
yeah. And you can get antelope, and you can get kangaroo, and you can get your beef and elk and venison,
Mhm.
and I think you get alligator there and stuff like that. But I've been ordering from them for a very long time because I love exotic meats. I used to bring to school when I went back home after I was kicked out of my boarding schools. I had one more year of school to finish, and I would bring my lunch to school, and I'd bring two kangaroo patties and a cut up bell pepper.
That's awesome.
People would look at me like, "What are you eating?" I'm like, "None of your business. It's mine. Get out of my face."
So funny. So, for those of you that have kids that have been kicked out of boarding school or kicked out of school, look at how great Gigi turned out. So, there's still hope, right?
I'm amazing, everybody. Recommend.
Okay, so let's talk about MasterChef. What was that like, and how did that happen?
Oh, that was an interesting experience. So, a friend of mine was on MasterChef twice, and I was kind of looking for my next thing to do. Kind
Mhm,
of like right now, I'm like, what do I do next? I do
mhm.
have some pipeline, but
Mm,
so MasterChef, I just kind of randomly applied. No, wait, no. I didn't just randomly apply. I remember, okay, I was at Five Guys. I don't eat Five Guys, but my husband wanted it. And I remember walking into Five Guys, and I got an email from a casting producer being like, "Hey, have you ever thought about trying out for MasterChef?" My friend's been on it twice. So I was like, I don't know, sure. So I emailed them back and I said, sure. And they were like, cool, we're going to call you in 10 minutes. And then I had a little brief phone call with them. They sent me over the initial application, and I submitted that with a little video. And literally within 15 minutes, they were scheduling me my Zoom call, which was like a 2-hour phone call, or I guess Zoom call, if you will. And we just went over everything to kind of get my story and all that kind of stuff. And that was that. And then after that Zoom call, they told me I needed to submit like 50 photos from my past.
oh my
And
goodness.
I needed to create a video, I maybe 2-minute video or something like that, of like a day in my life. And I needed specific sound bites and all that kind of stuff. So I made one of those videos too. And so I submitted all of that, and then about 2, 3 weeks later, they got back to me saying that I made it to the next round, and they needed 7 to 10 videos of my cooking skills. Mind you, I don't make desserts, and I eat keto carnivore. So if you want me to make bread, I'm screwed. So anyway, I was studying books and stuff like that. But they had me break down a chicken, they had me sear steak and salmon, and they had me make a couple different sauces, and they did make me make a pie. But luckily, I was raised by my father, who, as I mentioned before, is this French cook, and we were always making pies and donuts and stuff like that back in the day. And then
Mhm.
my husband is a sweets fanatic, so he loves like blueberry cobbler and stuff. So he had taught me how to do that before. And so I
Okay.
made all of these things for the videos. And then it was one day in like December. before Christmas, I got an email and they said they were flying me out to LA. And I was like, oh, snap, cool. And I could invite some friends to come to the audition to kind of cheer me on as I was cooking. But when you get to LA, you have 2 weeks there where there's 80 people, or I'm sure it varies every single year, but for me, there was 80 people that were sent there, and only 40 people get to go and do auditions. So there's another cut when you're in LA. So, you do your interviews, you do a bunch of cooking, and then there's a bunch of like little competitions to see who they're going to weed out.
Mhm.
So after about a week and a half, because we had to quarantine for like 3 days, which was like a weird blessing in disguise for me because I'm very go, 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 go. But then
Mhm.
it like forced me to just like sit in my hotel room. Granted, don't ask me, but I still got 20,000 steps every single day in my hotel room. Weird.
Oh my goodness.
I was literally jumping around the room because I was just like stir crazy. Anyway, so after about a week and a half, they did the cut. I made the cut, which is amazing. It was very exciting. And then we had the auditions to prep for, the on TV auditions, and I made one of my recipes for my book. But my recipe was an appetizer versus like a balanced plate. But me being this keto carnivore girl, like I don't really eat a balanced meal. So, and I honestly don't like sauces. And a lot of times they want a vegetable, a grain, a protein, and a sauce. And I will admit I don't make sauces. So like
I like that.
I can make mayonnaise, I can make an olive oil dressing, but like otherwise I'm like, say what now? You want me to
Yeah.
do? So I made my crispy salmon skin with salmon spicy sop. And there was like sesame oil in it, which some people are like, oh, but I needed a little flavor for these judges who
Sure.
do not care about their health.
Right.
So, and also sesame oil here and there is fine, in my personal opinion. Anyway, so yeah, what happened? I was auditioning on the first day of filming. There was like 4 or 5 days of filming. I was one of the last people to go. So like we got there at 4 a.m. and we were there until about 9 p.m. filming. And man, oh, it was every single day, mind you, and it was just exhausting.
I'm sure.
But it was so amazing having my friends there because I used to live in LA, so a lot of my LA friends could come and
That's
cheer
awesome.
me on. And then my sister flew in, which was super sweet. My other friend who I met on Instagram, she flew in from New York, and it was just so encouraging and so much fun. And I brought my food back to them, and the compliment that they gave me was, "This could be served at a restaurant." That is what I heard in my head, and I was like, "I am taking that and I am running." And they loved and they thought my salmon skin was perfectly crispy. I'm like, "It better be. I literally cook that every frickin' day." Joe thought I was too heavy-handed on the sesame oil, and what is his name? Aaron, that's his name, Aaron Sanchez. I don't really remember what he said, but he was a no as well. And
Huh.
then Gordon and Susan Feniger was our guest judge. They were yeses. But they were also just thinking like, since this isn't exactly a balanced meal, it's really hard for us to really grade your cooking because all you did was cook salmon skin, which is true. It's totally
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Now they edited it to make it seem like they absolutely hated my food because they only really focused on Joe and
Of course.
which whatever, I don't care. They really heavily focused on my salmon tattoo that I have in my mouth because they were like
Yeah.
obsessed. So
Yeah.
I showed that on camera, and they were all talking about what tattoos they would get in their mouths. And then basically they told me no, and that's totally fine. Wasn't expecting to get very far if I did in fact get on the show. But I remember when I was leaving, Aaron, I don't know if it was Aaron or Joe because I didn't really look behind me when they said this. They go, "Swim upstream, salmon." I was like, okay, that was kind of a dick thing to say, but like, whatever. So then I went out and I told everybody that I didn't get an apron, and my friends came up to me, hugged me, whatever, and they did an exit interview, and then I had to be there for another 4 or 5 days, and then I got home.
Huh.
So I was there for about 3.5 weeks, which honestly I feel like was was good enough for me. I mean, I would have loved to make it to the top 20, and like
Yeah.
my goal was to be the first one kicked off in the top 20. Like I just wanted to make the top 20. I didn't care how long I stayed after that. I was doing it to see how well I would do, like challenge myself in a way I'd never been challenged before. I actually was inspired by my husband because he's autistic and he challenges himself every single day to push his boundaries and get outside of his comfort zone. Whereas me, I'm very comfortable anywhere that I am, really.
Mm.
So this type of environment and experience was different for me because as my schedule is all over the place and I don't really plan things aside from working out in the morning. So this was kind of like a weird thing for me where I'm like, okay, put yourself in a different environment and see how you do.
Mhm.
Go. And when I travel and stuff, I'm fine because I always figure it out. And in this instance, there's a lot of pressure. And I won't say I didn't cry. I didn't cry on camera, on set, or anything like that. I think I cried the last day. Or no, I think I cried when I got back to we were staying in hotel rooms. I got back to my hotel room after I got kicked off, I think. And I just remember kind of like all of the stress and anxiety
Yeah.
just kind of like,
And exhaustion.
yeah, and exhaustion just kind of was like, woof. And then I just cried. And of course, when you get kicked out or rejected, you're like, I'm not good enough. But I will say, unfortunately, I feel like my experience caused depression
Mm.
because last year I definitely suffered from a lot of depression. And I go in and out of waves here and there now in
Mhm.
regards to it as well. But I also just think it's because I don't know what my next move in life right now is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other stuff going on in my family life right now that I'm like, you know what? I could take the back burner and I will help all of you because
Yeah.
they're like, woo, exploding. And I'm
Yeah.
totally fine. So yeah, it was kind of a weird identity crisis after that because I'm like, okay, well, even though Gordon liked my food, all I can hear in my head is you're not good enough to be on MasterChef. When in
Mhm.
fact, before I went on the show, I was like, Gigi, you aren't good enough to be on MasterChef because you don't cook all those things. Like,
Right.
let's be logical about this.
Yeah.
So it kind of put a little damper, I guess, on me and what I do on social media. Like, I haven't made a cooking video in a long time just because I'm like, I don't know. Like, I love, and another problem with that is since my diet since the last 3 years has become even more limited to the point that I literally will just eat greens and salmon and, I eat beef and I eat chicken
Mm.
wings. Like, I eat those types of things too. But like, I don't really want to make a puttanesca sauce with salmon in it because I'm not going to eat the olives and the tomatoes and the
Right.
everything else that goes into that. But I also don't want to waste it because my boys in my
Mhm.
life, they eat Chick-fil-A, they eat Chipotle, they eat chicken
Right.
nuggets. No amount
Yeah.
of me telling them probably not a good idea is going to change their minds. And you know what?
Right.
I'm not going to shit all over their eating habits because I don't want to
Mhm.
formulate any sort of weird eating disorders or anything like that. And I have 3 boys, and as much
Mhm.
as I don't want to say that genetics are the end all be all, but they have great genetics. And
Mhm.
like my husband can literally eat anything and his blood test and everything perfect.
Yeah.
And he's thin and it's just yeah. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, congratulations. Not everyone
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. My family's kind of the same way. My husband is mostly carnivore, but nobody else is, and I'm kind of the same way as you. Like, my kids are older, but, I don't wanna ruin my relationship with them, and I don't wanna push so hard that I ruin my relationship with them and have them turn away from meat or turn away from me because they feel like I'm always judging what they eat, and I'm not. I wish they would be more meat heavy, but they're doing okay, so I'm not gonna stress too much about it. Hopefully, we can be good examples, and at some point, they'll see later and give up the extra stuff.
That's how I feel. I mean, my kids are 2 and 5. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they're gonna want to eat ice cream and
Mhm.
chicken nuggets and mac and cheese and stuff like that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, live your life right now. But as
Yeah.
you get older, you're gonna see mommy and daddy not eating that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe daddy here and there, but you're not going to see mommy be eating that. And
Yeah.
mommy will educate you as you get older what things are healthier than other.
Mhm.
Like my older son's like, "Mommy, is this full of sugar?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, it is." And he's like, "Okay." And he puts it down. Then he
That's right.
goes get Lucky Charms and he's like eating it. I'm like, "That's full of sugar too, by the way."
He wants
Like,
it more.
I know. He's like, "Well, it's good." I'm like, "Okay, well, there we go."
That's the problem. It's good. We know.
I know.
Okay, so real quick, I had forgotten about your tattoo until you showed it. Was that painful? Because I know everybody's wondering.
No,
No?
it didn't hurt even a little bit. I actually went with Maya, aka Rhythm Kitchen tattoo parlor. We were at KetoCon and there was like a lull in the day, and I'm just like, I've wanted this tattoo for a very long time. And so I was like, okay, we need to call up a tattoo place, see if they're available, and they do this because not all tattoo parlors will do
Yeah.
this. And they were like, sure. So we just hopped into Uber, went over there. I got it done real quick. And I was like, okay, Maya, your turn. And she was like, oh, hell no. Hell no. But it took 5 minutes, didn't hurt even a little bit. And a lot of people
Wow.
like it's gonna rub away, but it's still intact the exact same way that when it was put in like 2.5 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does a typical what does a typical day of eating look like for you?
Typical day of eating. So I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:45. I do that because I like my alone time and I like to work out in peace. I don't want anyone to come bother me. And I know that the second anybody wakes up in this house around 6:30 or 7, they're gonna ask for something from me. And I want to be done with my life. I want to be done with a majority of the stuff I have to do for the day before anyone asks for my help. It gives me a peace of mind and sanity. So I'll wake up and I'll drink my monsters because those are one of my vices. Sugar free, ultra, zero, what up?
Mhm.
Anyway, so I don't eat until about 11, 11:30, 12. And when I eat, like for instance, today I had salmon belly and mackerel, and Carnivore Crisps has dog treats that are chicken jerky.
Yep.
They're human grade. You can eat them.
Yeah, right.
And I love them, so I ate those too. They're just like little jerky. It's just
Mhm.
I don't know, my mouth likes to chew on things. And then that's my meal for today. And then this evening, either we'll get sushi, which is usually sashimi, some salmon skin, and yeah, usually it's just salmon sashimi and salmon skin. Once in a while, I'll do something called hamachi collar, which is the collar of hamachi, and it's probably the most tender meat you'll ever eat. But if we don't do sushi, I'll have a big piece of salmon with salmon skin. I buy salmon skin specifically from a place called Yama Seafood, and they just sell the skin in packages, which is incredible. And so I'll have a piece of salmon with the skin, and then I'll have a whole bunch of carnivore crisps. Like
Yeah.
girl is obsessed with the brisket, and I will eat the
Me too.
3.75 bag with my salmon and salmon skin, and or I'll like have some brisket, I'll have some ribeye, I'll have some of the lamb. I make like a little
Yeah.
what is it, charcuterie plastic plate kind of
Yeah.
thing, paper plate, if you will. I'm like,
Yeah.
look at this fancy assortment here. I like it because it makes me feel like I'm eating a variety of food, which in essence, like we're just eating a whole bunch of animal protein, but it
Yeah.
makes me feel like I'm eating a variety, and it makes me
Right.
feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And I eat a lot of it, so that's
Yeah.
kind of what I do.
That's awesome. So now tell everybody where they can find you and tell everybody about your books.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram mostly, Gigi Eats. P.S. I'm very vulgar, so if you're not into that lifestyle or whatever, you may want to put me on mute. Like you say the F word a lot. I blocked my mom from my stories because girl doesn't want to see that. And my books. I have one book called She Does Keto. So it's a ketogenic book. I don't I love this book purely because it was my first book and it was an amazing offer and stuff like that. But the thing that I don't like about it is they told me what recipes I had to make. So they were like, make 6 pork recipes, make 5 dessert recipes, blah, blah, blah. And so in that book, I use like coconut flour and stuff like that, which I'm
Mhm.
not privy to that stuff anymore. And then my salmon cookbook, it's called Seduced by Salmon. And there are 69 salmon recipes in there, as well as information pertaining to salmon, where, there's 7 different types of salmon. There's only one variety of farm raised salmon, the health benefits, the farmed versus wild caught, different cooking preparations, blah, 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 blah. And I love that book because it is There's no grains involved or flours or anything like that. And you can substitute butter wherever you want. And it's truly my baby because I didn't have anybody telling me what to do because I self-published this one.
Okay.
And they're both on Amazon. And
Awesome.
that's it.
Thank you so much, Gigi. This was so much fun. I'm so glad we did this today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And now I think you should go have some sunburn.
Okay. Not today, but I will. Not today.
Whenever you're done with this sardine fast.
Yes. In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I'm going to try several days of salmon and see how it goes.
What's your favorite can of sardine or brand?
I like the Polar ones that come in the jar that are like super smoked. They're really good. And then the King Oscar smoked in olive oil without the skin and bones is the one I like the best. I have a hard time when it still looks like fish. And I know that's
Love the bones.
yeah, I know you do, but that's what a lot of people have a hard time though because they still look so much like fish. And so these are I think you can get more people to try them by giving them an example to try of one that doesn't have so much yuck with it, you know?
Yeah, one suggestion for brand, there's a brand called Season.
Yes, I've heard of that.
I think their sardines are quite possibly the best, along with Vital Choices sardines too.
Okay.
But you can't really find Vital Choice in stores, so it's
Yeah.
feast find in stores. They're really, really, really good too. So
Okay. Okay. I'll look for those and I'll try them.
yes.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Gigi. We'll talk to you soon. And
Bye.
thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time on the Carnivore Revolution.
Bye, everybody.